Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining today from the Department of Ag, Trade, Consumer Protection is our friend Michael. Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here and just playing off your name here. All right, so today we're talking about solar power and insulation and everything. Both of you and I were talking off air. It's a very fascinating area, and there's a lot of moving parts with this, so I'm excited to actually go through this with you today. It's definitely gained in popularity, and I feel like it's more accessible now to get it, but I think there are a lot of, as said, a lot of moving parts here. So DATCP sharing some great information on what you need to know before you get into this. So as we just look at this as where it is, where do you guys stand as of today?
Well, I think you keyed in on the perfect words of what do you need to know and what should you really know up front, in getting ahead of really all of those different factors before you decide to move forward with a solar project. And what we want to talk about is what are those different components that are necessary for you to understand before you decide, okay, yep, this is the right choice. But also truly understanding them, because we're seeing a lot of companies that are coming through and they're making maybe these door-to-door pitches, and they're making some promises about how efficient these systems are. They'll talk about different programs that you might qualify for, whether they be tax benefits or grants. Sometimes they're even representing to be that government entity themselves, here in Wisconsin. And we spoke with our partners at the Public Service Commission, and you had representatives coming around talking about how solar needs to come in and you need to partner with this company, and all of that was fictitious. And what's difficult about that is it starts like many other industries. It starts to sully the industry where you think, well, I want to get into solar, but I just don't know what I can trust. And it's unfortunate because there are a lot of really good companies out there. It's just a matter of navigating through those things and making sure you don't end up with a contractor who does poor work or just doesn't do the work at all. And when we see that instance, what's happening is a lot of these consumers are financing these, because they're expensive, right? And so they're financing it with an agreement that after, it's kind of installed or reach a certain point that they have to start paying on that. Well, maybe that contractor doesn't fulfill it or gets ahead of it and says we're done, and all of a sudden you're starting to pay on a system that doesn't work, and you don't want any of those to happen.
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of moving parts here, and but I do think there's some great ways of breaking this down, and you have some of those tips in front of me, which is going to help here. But the first one, and it stands true for hiring a contractor, regardless. We're talking solar today, but doing your research on the company before you sign a contract, it has to be a must in this, and it should be more than one to come out and visit you and getting those estimates.
Absolutely. One way you can research it is ask them, what other projects have you worked on? It's I would say it's rare that you're going to find a company come into a community and do one project and not have done another project, within a surrounding area, which could extend out, 30, 40, 50 miles. So ask them for references. What are some other residents that you did this installation on? And then call those consumers or ask those consumers to call you if they wouldn't mind. Also checking for complaints. You can reach out to us at the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection. You can also reach out to one of our partners at the Better Business Bureau and say, okay, how many complaints have you received and what were those complaints about? And, we'll kind of give you some idea of where it's about and what's going on. And then really understanding what are they offering? What that research is, okay, wait a second. What kind of promises are being made? Are they telling you that you're not going to have a utility bill ever again? As soon as we have them installed and everything, okay, a little research will show you that that's not going to be the case. Also understanding what kind of claims are going to be and how much money you're going to be getting back. So many times we'll see, hey, put these panels on and the electric company is going to pay you. And in some instances that might be the case, but those claims are quite exaggerated. And so you want to make sure that research is all part of that.
Absolutely, and always ask for promises, quotes, estimates, etc. in writing too. I think that's a big part of this because if it is a flyby company, you're probably not going to sign anything, I bet.
You don't want to. You absolutely want everything to be in writing. Now, verbal contracts are binding here in Wisconsin, but there's awfully difficult for us to help you out after the fact if we're not there for that conversation. So two things we want you to always do in person. Certainly is get that contract in writing, have somebody stand there, you can have those questions, go back and forth. And then, and while they're there, it's kind of going back when we were talking about how do you pick that contractor is make sure they come out to your house. Make sure they come to where you're at because they may say, well, we can put on any house, not realize that you have a full canopy of trees. or which way, those panels have to face and how they're going to be, or maybe the pitch of your roof isn't quite designed for how it's supposed to be. So that falls in line with making sure when you get everything in writing, those quotes, promises, they know exactly what they're truly quoting and what you're signing for.
Absolutely. I think you would want, I can't even imagine that type of a company not coming to see you in person, and that just would dispel a whole bunch of red flags if you ask me. Before signing the contract too, find out about special permits or approvals. Boy, that's a tough one because you just don't know in your area what the codes could be.
Absolutely. This falls in line with any home improvement project. You want to make sure you understand, you check what the local ordinances and what permits are needed. But don't just rely on the contractor to do that. Make sure you're reaching out yourself, because there may be some unique permits that are needed for solar installation, or in order for you to be able to connect to the grid, reaching out to that particular power company and say what's needed in order for us to connect. Don't just take it for granted that, well, they've put these in before, they'll get the permits, they know what they're doing, because ultimately the homeowner's responsible for getting those. So.
Yeah, I guess who shows up at the doorstep, at your doorstep, when that didn't happen correctly. Finally, and this is a good one, is verifying. We've heard a lot of incentives, tax credit, all these things. How do we really verify that we're actually going to get them, or they're actually still involved? Because I could see just saying, well, there was tax incentives out there, maybe they'll come back around. Just how do you verify that?
Well, first you have to have somebody who understands the programs. And so, I'm not an expert in all those programs, but there are individuals who are, starting with potentially your tax preparer, your accountant, and saying, all right, what particular tax impacts would I have here? Do I qualify them based on my income and all those other factors? And then also you can reach out to a lot of organizations like Renew Wisconsin, the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, and then of course our Public Service Commission, to find out more about all these programs that are being offered, and are they truly in our area, in our region? How many are there? Are there qualifications? You can research all those things ahead of time to say, all right, I'm going to fact check what you're telling me I'll qualify for, and then find out what your real payment's going to be.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, through those resources, I've been on a couple of those just for my own research purpose and trying to figure out, like, what does this look like long term, because again, this is a pretty substantial investment and you want it to pay off, but you got to understand, like I said, all those moving parts. While I know we just kind of went off the top here of a lot of great conversation, the conversation continues online through your website, and of course can ask some more questions there. So we want them to find you. How can they do that?
It did. Come visit us at DATCP.wi.gov. We'll have all the resources that we talked about here, plus quite a few more, to give you an actual printout of what you want to make sure you're checking those boxes off when you do a project like this. Or if you have any questions or want to inquire about any complaints that may be received about a particular company, you can give us a call at 1-800-422-7128.
Highly recommend the contractor section, by the way. I've gone on that one quite a few times to just reaffirm a few things when picking out a contractor for any project. So it's definitely a well done website there. And Michael, you've done a great job again sharing some great information. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeremy.